Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hi, red.olaughlin here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, anywhere in the world. This is truly a worldwide show, The Wise Ones on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. I'm truly honored today. I'm honored almost every time I'm here on the show because we have some great people. But today I have a Navy veteran, a business owner, somebody who has survived a myriad of things in his life. But I think the one thing that I really truly learned from him doing some research was his ability to overcome, adapt, and succeed. And so with that, we're going to start with Jason Thomas. Jason is a Navy veteran. He's a founder of Executive Leadership International. He's a CEO, co-founder of Synergy Solutions International. He's an empowering executive leader, really super intense, passionate about health in the workplace, also a public speaker. So with that, please join me, Jason.
Thank you so much for having me on, Red. It's an honor to be here and to be with the wise ones. I'll do my very best to bring a little bit of wisdom, hopefully to the audience and some value. That's always our drive, and I'm very excited for the opportunity.
Normally, I have a chance to talk with the guests ahead of time, get a little feel for them, their backgrounds, those kinds of things. But I did get a chance to look at a couple of your videos, do a little bit of research. So I have not a really good idea, but a decent idea of things going on. But one thing that impressed me, I'm super serious. One thing that really impressed me was a conversation that you were having with your audience. And you mentioned that your grandfather was your mentor and you were with him playing cards. Could you relate that story to our audience?
Absolutely, it'd be my privilege. So it's actually was likely it's the first memory that I really have. And like you said, my grandfather, Papa Jack, as my kids call him, was my mentor, always was. And the memory, I had to be maybe 3 years old, 4 years old at most. And I was in my great grandma Marcy's house, and he taught me how to play solitaire for the first time. And so we go through and learn playing solitaire on my own, and he's off doing his Sudoku that he loves to do. And I, as any parent will recognize, especially out of young children, I so nonchalantly kind of placed a card. I knew it wasn't supposed to go, and I just kind of waited. And it waited long enough where I just thought I got away with it, right? But with Grandpa's sixth sense, he knew, and initially, even without looking over, he's like, Jason, it makes absolutely no difference to me if you cheat at cards, but that's when he turned and looked at me and he's like, but you will always know. And if you know that you cheated, what's the point in playing? Where's the value in winning? And I didn't really realize it at the time as I quickly picked up that card where it wasn't supposed to be. And but it really was my first introduction to the concept of integrity, which being a product of the Naval Nuclear Power Program is the cornerstone of their program. Frankly, it's the cornerstone of any type of effective leadership relationship at all. So exceptionally grateful that early in my life I had that forceful of an impression made upon me. So eternally grateful for that. And yeah, it's a great memory to have, and one I cherish.
Well, I tell you another memory that also is you're unique among many, many, many superheroes out there, and that's having triplets. Uh,
Yes.
tell us about
Uh,
that. Was a bit of a surprise and a challenge.
Absolutely. So, my wife and I, we've been married almost 17 years now. Our triplets are 12, going to be 13 this year. I have two girls and a boy, and we'll see how my heart handles that blood pressure. But we jokingly say that we always we wanted three kids. We just weren't specific enough, I guess, when we had the conversation about having triplets. So uh, we had some concerns medically. We were warned by the doctors that we needed to start trying early, and one of the things that, especially after leaving the service, I recognize how fortunate we are for the medical care that's provided to us in the service. As frustrating as TRICARE or any healthcare system can be, um, we had access to fertility treatments that so many don't, and they expected us to have to use in vitro fertilization. So there's some earlier steps that we had to take, and you had to do so many of those before you would get there. Um, well, one of those earlier steps, was a shot, and it only took the one. That's all it took. So right before I deployed on the George H.W. Bush's main deployment, found out that we had triplets. We went in, and the doctor just started saying, "Count with me." And at first, I'm thinking, "What am I counting? Like, I can't have fingers or toes yet." And he's like, "1 and 2," and then it dawns on me, and I'm like, "3." I'm like, "We can stop counting, right?" Um, she did, and she's like, "All right, I'm gonna go print you out a picture." And my wife and I, we just looked at each other, and we got as far as the fact that the little V6 Mustang that I had, I guess we're gonna have to turn that in because it only has 4 seats, and that was about as far as we got. So I was very, very fortunate to have a command that, because we knew it was going to be high risk, coordinated early into the deployment, such that when uh, it came time, I was actually able to caught off and be home for the birth of my triplets. So exceptionally fortunate from that. That's not an opportunity most get, and can't be more grateful. It's just a wonderful experience.
You mentioned the Navy nuclear program, one of the toughest in the military. Uh, I from listening to you, that wasn't your first choice, but it turned out to be a very successful choice. And it's like everything else in life, things happen to us. Sometimes we know why, but many times we don't. But I think part
Mhm.
of life is that we accept what's there, or we should, and learn from it. And when you learn from it, take a look at where you are today versus, had you actually been in an aviation, environment, totally different world. But
Mhm.
again, it's how the how you play the cards that are in front of you, so to speak. So
Absolutely.
you went
You
into the
know,
Navy nuclear program. Tell us a little bit about that because that's something most people have no concept of.
absolutely. So, as you mentioned initially, I was very fortunate going through high school that we had an NGROTC program. That's where I had my first professional mentors, Lieutenant Colonel Ken Knotts, retired, and Senior Chief James Griffin. And this is a point in time where, sadly, we don't normally have in curriculum the development and introduction of leadership. And so I was very grateful for that. And as you had alluded to, I had earned a full ride scholarship actually to Ohio State to go be a Marine combat aviator. And I made about 2 weeks before I tore my hamstring and had to leave the program and a couple years of crutches. But coming back in, I still wanted to serve once I got healthy. That was one of the things I talked to my grandfather about when I got out, because that was always the goal. That was the mission. And all of a sudden, I didn't know where to go. And it's not the great thing about mentors, they don't just give you the answers. All right. They don't do things for you. What they do is they provide you the information and the tools you need to get there. And in this case, it was you can't control your health. You have to get better. You have to decide what you want to do. What is important to you at this point? And that's really where my value to serve came back in, and was very fortunate to score well enough to join the Naval Nuclear Program. I didn't know at the time that it is the most academically advanced and challenging program that we have in the military. And I emphasize academic, all right, because I'm not a Navy SEAL. But it's over effectively 2 years of training that you do down in South Carolina. Um, I was trained as a nuclear electrician, and then I spent the remainder of my 10 years of active duty on the last Nimitz carrier, doing her main deployment at George H.W. Bush, as well as a great opportunity to be a plank owner and part of the initial manning team for the new Ford class carrier, the Gerald L. Ford, who just finished her maiden deployment just not too long ago. So it was a very unique opportunity to learn and work with the design engineers and develop new systems and change the departmental structure, which you don't normally get to do at all, let alone as an enlisted sailor. So, and that only happened because of the great leaders that we had there. At the time when I first showed up, because Reactor actually shows up first before even months before the captain and the XO are assigned. At the time, Commander Lloyd, now Rear Admiral Lloyd, who has the greatest title ever. It's Commodore and Chief Engineer for ship design for the Navy, and he really he was the embodiment, to me for empowered leadership. Really allowed people to take the initiative and be safe in the fact that you could do so. But within the Naval Nuclear Power Program, we are exceptionally structured. Like I said, integrity is the cornerstone of what we do, and we love to train, and we train on integrity explicitly in our watchstanding principles all the time. And they're the same principles that I quickly found are the leadership principles needed in the civilian workforce. Because when I left active duty in 2017 and had the opportunity to join GE Aviation prior to being recalled, and then running a plastics manufacturing company as the plant manager afterwards, I quickly saw that the training and growth that we do intrinsically in the service, always training our replacements, developing future leaders, doesn't exist well in the corporate sector. And a lot of times you have individuals who are just there long enough who get then promoted into a supervisor or managerial role. And especially in the engineering space, we can have some unique characters that aren't intrinsically prepared for managing, supervising others. We just need to provide the tools. Jocko Willix, who's a Navy SEAL and does a great set in his books, talks about the fact that anyone has the ability to be a leader, right? We just have to provide them the tools to do so.
I know, so when you're in the military, you do have an advantage over the civilian world in the fact that they're a captive audience. In a civilian, they can leave and go to another job. They don't have to stay there. So that's an extra added leadership skill, is keeping talent in an environment that they may not like temporarily. Do you have any examples of that you've worked through?
100%, especially in my last role as a plant manager, but even in when I was at GE, just broadly, we look at the world today, and we have a very transitory nature and almost expectation inside the workforce. And most of the time, that you see in the media, that's blamed on the younger generations in the workforce, vice. Like, for example, my grandfather worked for GE for 30 years, right? That was the intention. Now, obviously, I'll acknowledge the fact that most companies no longer have pensions, so there is a factor there. But I would argue, and I argue strongly, that it's the transitory nature is due to the lack of leadership development and leadership from the top of the companies that we have. Too much of the turnover is just expected. Training is not looked at as an asset. Leadership development, if it exists, is a side cost when you look on P&L. And when we look at the impact that we can make as leaders inside of organizations, that honestly, it's one of the largest cost, I think that's affecting companies, is the fact is that we are continuously having this churn, and that churn is due to a lack of community that's developed inside of companies, and that comes through leadership, empowerment, the ability to provide the right type of motivation, which I have a side project with a good friend and visionary, designed explicitly to address that fact. And, the one thing is that I preach is that leadership has nothing to do with you. And every good leader knows this. Uh, you can be a boss, you can have authority, you can have a title. That doesn't make you a leader. All right. Leaders help bring out the potential that already exists in others and inspire them to use that. And when they have done that, and those individuals then are becoming leaders themselves and inspiring others to grow into their potential that they already exist, that's when I consider you actually reaching that point of being a leader. The difference between acts of leadership and being a leader. And at the end of the day, it is always coming from, that is an external set. You cannot create yourself as a leader. Right? Only those you serve can really impose that on you. It's an interesting dichotomy there.
There's a cultural difference between the military, no matter what service in or what culture within that particular military, subsurface, surface, aviation, whatever. You've transitioned out of the military into civilian world. If you had to offer two things that somebody getting ready to retire from the military or transitioning from the military into civilian life, what are things that they should be thinking about 6 months before that transition or rotation date to make them more
prepared?
We use the term flexible in their new work environment, because there's a lot of challenges that they have not seen before working in a civilian world.
Absolutely. So I want to give the resources first, and then I'll share my experience and the impact. The first and foremost, right, while you're still in, specifically, get everything that you've ever had documented with medical. I know Navy medical could be fun at times, but get it all done. That's the first set. Make sure that you have that. There are great organizations, nonprofits like the DAV, Disabled American Veterans, that are VA approved nonprofits that will help do all your paperwork that you need around your VA disabilities, so those are being captured. Because even if you get captured at 0%, because it's all but guaranteed, if you've served, you've done something to your body that should be captured. And if that gets worse over time, you want to have that captured, because it's a lot harder to go back and get something done. I also say that it's an active effort you have to make to stay connected in the world. This is something I've come to realize much more recently, is the fact that we are so accustomed in the service of being able to go in and having our friends and mentors be able to recognize quickly, if we're off, our mental conditions. The Navy once had a term called intrusive leadership. I don't know if they still use that today, but it was for leaders really to be looking at their personnel, making sure that they're being taken care of, looking for signs of concern, depression, to keep away from, the veteran community. 22 a day has, the highest suicide rate. And I think it's because we're not used to having to reach out for that support. As a veteran, you actually have expanded your community. Not only do you have your active service connections that still exist, you've now entered a brotherhood, a sisterhood of generations of those who have served. But the difference is you have to reach out now, and you really need to be cognizant of that. I speak outside of leadership. I speak a lot about mental health and suicide prevention, especially in the veteran community. So the the last resource I will say for everyone who's still in active duty is make sure that every person knows about the GoRoger.org initiative. It's a branding from Stop Soldier Suicide, which is a nonprofit. They are entirely not connected to the VA or to the DoD. So when you're in, especially communities like the nuke field, special forces, anything that requires a clearance, where there's a risk of losing your job if you go get help, there is a place to go. And really want to make sure everybody knows that. Also, don't think that you have to start in a position outside of leadership when you come out, because that was what happened for me. And I was very, very lucky and very thankful for the support group that I had at GE, because I counted myself as a pretty good nuke electrician, especially around troubleshooting. But what I found is that in the nuke field, we have every manual drawing that there is. We have every schematic. And I found out that that rigor does not exist the same in every organization. And I think the smaller you go in organizational size, the less that is there. So I quickly found myself, because I was under this false impression I should be a civilian engineer before I led civilian engineers. And thankfully, especially Josh Doolin, who was my mentor when I first came out, took the time to help train, because without those drawings, I quickly found out that I was not going to be a good civilian engineer. And thankfully, there was a supervisory position, a manager position over that test and certification department that opened up, which really allowed me to bring much better value to the company than I was as a test engineer.
E-learning. Let's talk a little bit about that. What does that mean to you?
So it means a lot more than it used to. In the Navy, we do a lot of in-person training, PowerPoint training, and then all our, I call it our standard annual block of e-learning training. And the good companies have those for compliance requirements. My father, who, while I was recalled back to active duty, he started his company, the LMS Doctor, which is designed around the infrastructure behind that. He's a unique world authority in the space. He's received his PhD, he has his MCSE, MCT. Actually wrote the testing manuals for Microsoft when they were developing those certifications. And he and my sister helped build up the LMS Doctor, where today we're still very proud to be working with our partners at SweetRush for the Intel CloudView project, which is to set the standard of cloud-based training, just as Microsoft did in the 90s, early 2000s. And we've recognized that, particularly when COVID happened, outside of everyone having to go remote, everybody had to start doing e-learning. Everyone had to, because they still had training requirements. And so everybody went out and grabbed a system, big, small, depending on the company, the amount of dollars you spent on this onboarding. And then you had a piece of tech stack that is unique and requires a level of governance that is not standard necessarily inside these companies. And we started seeing that the wheels started coming off for these companies, 6-9 months afterwards, and continuing to this day. So initially it was providing this high level consultation, helping their organizations effectively be able to implement that, so they had the revision control and actually could provide the effective training content wherever they were in the world. And when I came back from my invitation from being recalled to active duty in 2020, and after working a year as a plant manager, had the opportunity to come on board as CEO of the LMS Doctor at the beginning of last year, and we had just the one company. And we definitely see a large lack of understanding in the space, I think, at the C level. Training itself, especially the tech stack and the onboarding is seen, it's just a cost line, all right, vice the asset that it is and needs to be recognized by leaders of all organizations. And out of some serendipitous connections up in Canada, we made some connections with our great international partners, CNS Canada, CNS Bangladesh, who have been doing World Bank infrastructure projects for over 30 years. But they've never been able to bid on learning infrastructure implementation because they never had those credentials. And fortunately, Russell brings those credentials. So we are in a place where we're able to be doing government and international bids that we never thought possible. The scope of impact that we're able to now be able to provide with our partners is just beyond our wildest dreams. That because at this point, a lot of the infrastructure in some of these more remote third world locations has been built to the point where they're ready to start doing learning. And that's going to change not only the individuals, training is going to change the generations, and that will change the world. One thing inside our portfolio is that everything's a net positive, and learning itself is a net positive for everyone involved. So that's why it's such a passion set inside our portfolio.
I notice you use the term synergy solutions. And one of the things that you work with companies is their strategies. And
Yes.
that's a mindset, which is a downstream of the learning that the leadership has had over time. So when you're trying to develop synergy out of a small, medium-sized company, tell us how you review the strategies and work with the senior leadership to say, hey, is this really the direction you want to go in, or can you make it, tell us some of the things that you really and truly think are super important for that small to middle-level company when they're strategizing their future.
Absolutely. So, start with synergy for a reason. As a nuke in complex systems, that I love the idea, the product being greater than the sum of the parts. And in my graduate studies, it captures that to achieve that optimization, when you have finite resources, which everybody does, that equal application will never create the most optimum output for the company. So first and foremost is having an understanding of that. People using the terms of, we all hear firing on all cylinders, right? Well, we got to be careful with that understanding, because not everything should be firing at the same level. If we had infinite resources, of course, we want to have every level of the company as maximized as possible. But that's not the reality. No matter how large your company is, you have a limit to your resources, and they need to be applied effectively and intentionally towards your vision and goal. So that's the first set, is having that mindset understanding and the recognition of why we're going to look at this in the first place. And then it's around the discovery is, what are you trying to do? Too many people jump into the how, like, oh, I've got this tool I want to do, or I want this one little thing fixed. Like, it's always a stop. Let's talk about the big picture. All right. What is the vision? What is the goal that your organization, big, small, doesn't matter, is trying to achieve? All right. What have you tried before that's worked? What have you tried before that hasn't? And where are your resources currently? So we can take a look and see which areas we can implement systems and improvements to help bring costs down. Most of that I'd like to focus particularly around the lowering of turnover. And that's done through, as I can sneak back to my passion set, leadership and development of the teams. When you have people who feel worthy inside the workplace, your turnover rate drops dramatically, which is one of your absolute largest costs, because you have the recruiting cost, you have the onboarding cost, you have the ongoing training cost, and you have the unexpected loss of productivity when the individual is missing and you have an open spot inside your P&L. So now you have overtime a lot of times, depending on your infrastructure, which then furthers decreasing morale. So it's a spiral. It's a self-spiraling situation if you don't make that break. So, we really look to stop that, right? Because that starts now giving the opportunity for us to find where innovation and where those who have the energy inside the companies are to make the impacts from the resources they already have.
There are several other items here on my list of things I wanted to get to today, but it's not going to happen. However, you do have a passion, and that passion is mental health in the workplace. And so,
Okay.
before we get to the end of the session today, I'd like to have you go into that a little bit, because it's a topic that I've talked about many, many times, and it's a really critical topic for work. And I think COVID really showed a lot of it. So why don't we go kind of end our session today on that? And so if you take next couple 3 minutes, talk about mental health, workplace, and what you can do to help.
Absolutely. It'd be my privilege. We live in an age, at least, where we've begun to recognize the fact that mental health is as critical, if not honestly more critical, than your physical health, if you're looking explicitly inside the scope of the workplace. Mental health is something that we don't intrinsically look at inside ourselves or as a society. It takes an active effort, and we have to look out for each other. We have to talk about it. We have to bring it up. You know, one of my first meetings when I was manager at GE, I brought everyone together and I talked about, we've been doing a lot of work, people feeling stressed, here's, there are resources here, suicide prevention resources, and, have them posted. And like afterwards, everyone come up like, oh, did you lose somebody? And while there has been stuff in the past, the answer was no. I want you to have this resources. These are the baseline resources I make sure my sailors have. And we have to ensure that, because I use the example that people can give over 100% in something, but you're tapping in your reserves. And if you don't take the time to fill those reserves, especially your mental reserves, all right, you will burn out and you will pay for it. And myself, I am gone through that quite a bit myself in recent years and months. It is a credit card, both in the short term and in the long term, that you have to manage. And the biggest thing I can say is look out for one another and be ready to ask for help. In the service particularly, we have no shame, all right, when we fall down, of just sticking our hand up for help. We don't know who's going to help us. Somebody. Most of the time, 10 different people are going to grab and pick you up. And for some reason, when we're outside that environment, we're afraid to bring up that we need help. Ask for help. Get it. It's that simple. One thing I've noticed this year, I won't go into the whole how I got here, over the last few months, I've developed a non-epileptic seizure disorder, where half the time I'm walking around a cane. And there's so much great hope as I've been going through the airports to different speaking engagements, the amount of people who just want to help. All right. And, it's taken personal growth to be able to accept that help. But that is the base reaction. All right. Intrinsically, with all the mess of social media and that can be found at the heart of people is goodness. And we just need to give an opportunity to bring that potential out. Right. Nobody needs to go through anything alone. And that's my biggest ask for leaders and individuals is look out for one another and protect each other by giving those resources out.
Well, that's a perfect way to lead into, what value do you offer to a new client, and who would be an ideal company or client for you, and how do they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So, easiest way to get in touch with me is we have a link app that I'm not sure if we can throw up in a chat set. I think it's see it on the screen there. That link app / SSI CEO. We have a pretty diverse portfolio of startup companies. Obviously, we have the learning infrastructure side. Do a lot of work on executive leadership. We have Company Executive Leadership International. I developed explicitly for that to help companies be able to optimize their resources, be able to connect them to the right value. That's something I pride myself on, is that we know the world's best, all right, but we work with companies across the board, all right, and not every time can a company afford the world best solution. I can afford the world best solutions in things, right? So it's finding the right companies and individuals that have the character and vision and be able to connect them together is one of the things that we do just in general. The leadership coaching, the empowerment coaching, whether it be one-on-one or whether it be for your organization, that's where our passion set lies. But within the portfolio, we have a vast opportunity to help. And if we're not the right ones to be able to solve your problems, we will get you to the people who are. That's our commitment, is that value comes first. One of my more recent friends and mentors speaks to the moral imperative of when you are the best, you have to be able to make sure that it is seen, because you do a disservice by not being able to provide it. Right? But at any time that you're not the best and that you aren't the right resource, you've got to connect them to who is. And I believe it all comes full circle in time. I have that faith. And we're looking to add value wherever we can. So please reach out. Any questions, from a business side or a personal side, especially on the mental health side, there are connections across the board. I have there, service, non-service connected. Please don't suffer in silence, whether that's mental health, whether that's as a business. If you want to grow, attach yourself to someone who's an authority in where you want to grow at and go. If you are the smartest person in the rooms you're walking into and everyone's saying yes, you're in the wrong rooms. You've got to be putting yourself in the rooms where you're not. And effective leaders, you'll learn that you want to build your teams full of people who are better than you in every area, right? And help connect those dots. So that's what we do.
Okay, for the people in the video world that the USA Global TV and Radio Network goes out to, they can see the website, linkapp.com/SSICEO. But for our audio audience, Linkapp, LINQ app, APP, so linqapp.com/SSICEO. So to get in touch with Jason, go to his website there, https, as we said, linkapp.com/SSICEO, and you can be one of the first people in your block to make Jason's acquaintance. So anyway, Jason, thank you so very, very much today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and please come back.
It's been my privilege
again, because there's several other areas that I would love to have gotten into. And so with that, I'm going to conclude the Wise Ones for today on the USA Global TV and Radio Network. Very shortly, I'm going to be doing, let's see here, in about a little less than 20 minutes, Talking Heads. I'm starting a brand new series on a deep dive into nutrition. And so we're going to be getting into some areas that you're probably aware of, but you're not necessarily aware of exactly what and how it can help you. So with that, please join me when you can. When you cannot join us, go to the YouTube, look for MRO Global LLC, and on the playlist, you can find the Wise Ones. You can find almost 40, in fact, over 40 different channels that are available on the playlist there for the USA Global TV and Radio Network. So with that, Red O'Laughlin signing out. I will catch you all next week. Have a wonderful time. Take care. Bye now.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents our partner and sponsor, Mr. Philip Sykes and the British School of Excellence. Building confidence, changing lives. And now, proudly presenting the Polished Professional.
On a transformative journey with the British School of Excellence's comprehensive suite of masterclasses, crafted to elevate your professional and personal life. 8 outstanding modules will elevate you to the next level. Module 1, Exploring Life's Purpose, delves into the depths of self-discovery, guiding you to chart your unique path to fulfillment and success. Module 2, Mastering Professional Presence and Confidence. This masterclass is a deep dive into the art of self-assurance and commanding presence, which is essential for standing out in today's competitive landscape. Module 3, Learn the secrets of visual impact, how to curate a personal style that amplifies your professional brand. Module 4, Mastering Professional Etiquette and Communication Excellence, navigating the nuances of corporate interaction with grace and tact. Module 5, Elegance in Eloquence. We impart powerful techniques to captivate and persuade any audience with your oratory skills. Module 6, Unlock the potential of your emotional intelligence, EQ, and harness the ability to connect, empathize, and lead with emotional savvy. Module 7, Mastering DISC, building a gateway to understanding behavioral styles, fostering better personal and professional relationships. Module 8, Mastery in Dining Etiquette, building your confidence to perfect the subtleties of dining with finesse, enhancing your social savviness at any table. Step into the Polished Professional program where poise, elegance, and excellence aren't just taught, they're instilled for life. Join us to redefine your potential and polish your professional edge.
To learn more, go to thebritishschoolofexcellence.com. The British School of Excellence are investors in people. Let us invest in you.
Hello everyone, I'm Simon MacDonald. I live in the West Highlands of Scotland, a very beautiful part of the world. Seems a long way from the USA Global TV station. But remember, USA Global TV is worldwide. It's a fantastic platform. And every Wednesday, I come along here as part of the show of the United Kingdom News and Culture. And it's just like a family reunion each time. It's one of these amazing stations that has such a beautiful, friendly, and intelligent atmosphere as well. And we reach out to an audience in the most unimaginable places. And I came here, I don't know, must be over a year ago now. I was introduced by Dr. Philip Chan, and I met Ian Plum-Turner and Helena Chard, who are co-presenters on the show. And then Diane Floyd-Bem came along as well. And I mean, the five of us, Dr. Jacqueline, of course, who is our host and our mentor, has just made this show work so well. Tremendous people, lovely time we have. And we impart a lot of information, a lot of knowledge. Nothing's rehearsed. It's all done off the cuff, and it all just gels. And we get great feedback from people coming back and saying how they're enjoying the show. It's lovely to hear, and it's lovely to get that interaction from outside as well. And we're all listeners, and some of us are elevated listeners as well. So we enjoy every second of it, and we hope you do too.